This is your 2-minute warning. 2 minutes till the news conference. This is the 2-minute warning. Good afternoon. My name is Damon Circosta. I am the chair of the North Carolina Board of Elections. With me today is Karen Brinson Bell, our executive director, and Caitlin Love, our general counsel. I am very pleased to report that North Carolina just conducted a record-breaking election. Over 74% of registered voters made their voice heard in our state. That number is simply astounding. Voters cast their ballots absentee by mail, during our early voting period, and on Election Day. As we continue to process the 5.5 million ballots, I want to thank the hard work and dedication of election workers from across the state. From our 30,000 poll workers to our county boards of elections and our permanent state staff, everyone met the challenges of record turnout during a global pandemic with unparalleled professionalism. Their work is not yet complete. In the coming days, state and county staff will complete their post-election procedures. These include processing ballots that were voted on or before Election Day, researching provisional ballots, and conducting audits and verification measures. This work will include county-level canvass meetings on November 13th and a state board certification meeting on November 24th. As has been our constant refrain this election season, our job is to get the count right, as fast as we can, but above all, correct. We anticipate that some of the questions that will come for us today will ask to prognosticate who will the eventual winners be. That is not our job. The voters of North Carolina, after all eligible ballots are counted, will make that determination. Now I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Karen Brinson Bell. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. The actual casting of ballots has ended, but the election is not over. We want to explain what takes place now and throughout our canvass period until we certify the election and announce official results. At 12:28 a.m., our last set of unofficial election night results were uploaded. Nearly 5.5 million ballots were cast and counted. These unofficial results represent more than 977,000 absentee by mail ballots cast by 5 p.m. on Monday, November 2nd, 3.6 million ballots cast during the one-stop early voting period, and approximately 900,000 ballots cast at Election Day precincts yesterday. North Carolina stopped counting votes on election night because there were no more votes to count at that time. There are also no more ballots that can be cast for this election. All eligible ballots have already left the voters' hands. Just as is done with every election, today the county boards of elections across North Carolina began the post-election processes of researching provisional ballots and counting the provisional ballots cast by eligible voters, as well as accepting and counting absentee ballots that arrive by November the 12th, provided that they were postmarked by Election Day. Additionally, county boards of elections are processing voter history, conducting hand-to-eye audits, reconciling ballots cast to the number of voters who were recorded in the poll books, and many other election administration tasks to ensure the accuracy and the integrity of the election. This is the canvass process defined by North Carolina law and the process that occurs with every election by the election professionals across this great state. Regardless of vote differentials, we never stop counting until all eligible votes are counted and added to the final, certified, and audited results. And with that, we'll take your questions.
Our first question today is from Dewan Hogard with ABC 11 WTVD.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. This first question can either be answered by Damon or Karen. When you take a look at some of the counties in the state where, for example, Pasco County, there's a 49, or Nash County, a 49 vote difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and albeit the numbers are unofficial, what does that say to you about the process that you all are going through in having to actually certify the election and go through your checks and balances?
So we don't look at specific contests in that regard. What we are doing is going through our processes, checking our chain of custody, looking at our reconciliation, determining if those provisional ballots through our research can be counted and added to the vote totals. And we'll continue these processes. We'll now look at the absentee ballots that were properly postmarked and determine if they can be counted. That's what we do in the canvass, and until we have all the votes uploaded as part of our canvass certification meeting, that's when we'll look to see what the vote margins are.
Our next question is from Jonathan Drew with the Associated Press.
Hi, I was wondering if you could give us an update on the number of outstanding ballots, outstanding absentee ballots, which stood at 117,000 as of yesterday. And also, is there any number you can give us on provisional ballots statewide? Thank you.
Yes. We are still collecting information on the provisional ballots. The counties have been sent a survey so that they can give us the count on the provisional ballots, and in compliance with Session Law 2020-17, we will have a report made publicly available by noon tomorrow at the latest. So we hope to have that as soon as possible. In terms of the absentee by mail ballots that were requested, but we do not have votes for those voters at this point in time, that is still at approximately 117,000. Because where we are now is that we have to watch for those ballots that may have been mailed back to the county boards of elections, ensure that they were properly postmarked. We also are going through the voter history process, which is a little lengthier because of the number of precincts that we have to process in order to get the voter history information to compare that to the absentee ballot requests.
We have a follow-up from Jonathan Drew with Associated Press.
Yes, I also wanted to ask, out of those 117,000, is there any way to use the ballot track system to see how many are currently in the mail or have been scanned in by the Postal Service? Thank you.
We are looking into whether that is a number that we could give a accurate representation from. We have to remember that there are barcodes that would be scanned at a mail distribution center that might be smudged or not correct, might have become damaged somehow in the mail stream. We also, the Postal Service actually had a process whereby they were gathering locally mailed election mail and delivering it to the County Board of Elections if that mail was delivered or was mailed within the county. If it was being sent out of county, that still went through a distribution center. So we are looking to make sure that if we do utilize any of the ballot tracks information, if that's an accurate piece of information that we could provide before we would release that.
Next question is from Grace Holland with WFMY News 2, Greensboro.
Hey, this is Grace Holland with WFMY News 2. How long is it going to take for ballots that we're receiving over the next few days to start being included into the count?
So we have to keep in mind that we have notice requirements by our state laws in regards to when absentee board meetings may be held. Those were announced prior to the election. What we have found with most counties is that they will be conducting that meeting on November the 12th. That is also traditionally when many of the county boards would hold their provisional ballot counting meetings, which is the day before county canvass. At this point in time, we have very few exceptions in terms of counties that would be holding meetings outside of November the 12th, or possibly just limiting it to November the 13th.
We have a follow-up from Grace Holland, WFMY.
Is it possible that North Carolina races, particularly the presidential race, which we are still waiting to be called, do you think that can be called before November the 12th with all these absentee ballots still out?
Well, as our chairman said, we aren't in the practice of calling winners of elections. We count the ballots and certify the results, and that will determine the winners.
Our next question is from Joe Bruno, WFOC TV, Charlotte.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. Do you have a master list of when all the counties are conducting that absentee ballot review meeting that you could provide or release?
We surveyed them this morning to confirm those dates and times, so once we have that, you could reach out to our PIO, Joe, and get that information.
Next question is from Lecrae Mitchell with CBS News.
That 117,000, does not include voters who may have applied for an absentee ballot but then decided to person, right?
I believe your question was, does the 117 approximate ballots include those who went and voted in person? It does not. We have well, let me say this. It does not include anyone who voted in person during the one-stop early voting period. It may include individuals who voted yesterday in person during Election Day, and until we complete the voter history process where we upload the poll book data, which in some counties is a manual process, we will not be able to reconcile those absentee ballot request numbers against those who voted on Election Day.
We have a follow-up from Lecrae Mitchell, CBS News.
Am I clear in that we will not, the 117,000 will not be able to start being counted until those county board meetings take place? No sooner, right?
They would be counted during an absentee board meeting. That is correct. So, if a county holds one prior to November the 12th, they could consider those absentee ballots. But in most cases, the counties are going to be meeting November the 12th or perhaps November the 13th.
The next question is from Diane Gallagher with CNN.
I'm not able to hear the question.
Sorry, hopefully you can hear me now. Is there any, as far as provisional ballots, those will also be announced? I know that you post an amount of them, but results for those will not be fed in until the 12th, correct? Or until the 13th when they canvass?
Yes, that is correct. The county boards will meet in order to consider provisional ballots, and in most cases that will either be the 12th or perhaps the 13th.
We have a follow-up from Diane Gallagher.
So it is safe to say that North Carolina's numbers are not going to move until November 13th.
Very few exceptions would North Carolina's numbers move before the 12th or the 13th. That's correct.
Our next question is from Kim Kane with WLOS TV, Asheville.
Kim, I'm not able to hear you.
Kim Kane, WLOS TV, are you there? Okay, we'll go to Teresa Bowles from WITN TV.
Hey, hopefully you can hear me. Teresa Bowles with WITN in Greenville, North Carolina. Can you talk about this process versus other processes in the past? Has it been slower due to the pandemic? Is this process going to take longer because of more absentee ballots? What's the process been like for you guys?
My 14 years of election administration, this is pretty step for step what we have done in North Carolina for some time now.
Our next question is from Paul Wolverton with the USA Today Network.
Yes, hello. Regarding the outstanding absentee by mail ballots, do you guys have some data or history on like what percentage at this point would typically be returned? Because it seems unlikely that all of them will be coming back.
We don't have a good comparison when it comes to absentee by mail ballots just because this is such an unusual year. Typically, we only see 3 to 5% of our ballots cast absentee by mail, and obviously we far exceeded that with this election. So I think a comparison would be difficult to make. In terms of our provisional ballots, we do know that in 2016, we had approximately 61,000 provisional ballots, and approximately 27,000 of those were counted.
We have a follow-up from Paul Wolverton.
Yes. Also, is there any litigation or other challenges pending now regarding this election from any of the campaigns or other organizations regarding how you guys are operating now?
I'll ask our general counsel to speak to that.
We haven't had any new litigation filed in the last few days. The State Board of Elections does have some existing litigation against it, but again, nothing new has been filed in the last few days.
Our next question is from Brian Murphy with the News and Observer.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. My question is about the 117,000. Will that number decrease? Will you publicize that number? Will you update that number as ballots come in? And will you update that number as you find people who did vote on election day?
Yes, we actually can continue to update that number. Just recognize that you'll need to be patient. The voter history process, obviously, is, as I mentioned previously, it's a manual process for many counties as they don't use electronic poll books. So they have to scan each poll book form. And then in terms of the ballots, we certainly have to just monitor if they were postmarked yesterday, it's obviously going to be 2 to 3 days in the mail, most likely, before we'll see our first returned ballots if they were postmarked yesterday.
The next question is from Colleen Harry with WFAE Radio.
Colleen, I'm not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Could you clarify for me? In the beginning, you mentioned 74%, which is a record for voter participation in the election. Can you clarify, was in-person early voting also record-setting, and absentee ballots mailed? Was that also record-setting?
I can say that yes, it was record-setting for sure with our absentee by mail ballots at 977,000. In 2016, we did not even have 200,000 absentee by mail ballots cast. So, historically, that is not a voting method that most North Carolinians have chosen. We were just shy of matching the 2016 numbers for one-stop early voting. Or actually, that's not correct. We did break a record. I was remembering that our ballots cast almost broke the whole entire 2016 election. So let me go back to just the one-stop part. We did break a record with one-stop early voting turnout this election.
We have a follow-up from Colleen Harry with WFAE.
Can you tell me how many North Carolinians requested absentee by mail ballots? And also, while I have you, was there a problem with Union County last night in getting their results? It seemed to have come in later than usual.
I believe we can double check with our PIO, Pat Gannon. He can confirm for you the number of absentee by mail requests. I believe we ended at approximately 1.4 million requests, but I will let him confirm that for you. In terms of Union County, I don't want to go into play-by-plays on each county, but I can say that Union County was very deliberate in making sure that their results were accurate. This was their second statewide election utilizing brand new voting equipment, and so they were being just very methodical in their processes, and to that I say thank you for being consummate election professionals and ensuring accuracy. So nothing unusual occurred. They were just making sure of accuracy.
Our next question is from Scott Cohn with CNBC.
Hi, thank you. That 117,000, as that number decreases, as you talked about before, will you be breaking out the reasons that it's decreasing? In other words, people returning ballots, or as you go through the history and you find that people showed up and voted, will you be able to break that out as the number fluctuates?
Honestly, we haven't had a conversation of whether we'll detail it to that degree. I'll leave that to our data communications team to determine how they're best able to provide that data.
We have a follow-up from Scott Cohn, CNBC.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask about provisional ballots. Presumably there are a lot more of them just because of the number of people that voted. Is it similar, just kind of in proportion to previous elections, and are there any sorts of trends and reasons that people were voting with provisional ballots? Any sort of color on that?
Actually, it's probably too soon to determine what our provisional ballot number will be, as we are still surveying the counties. Yesterday was actually a low turnout for us on Election Day in terms of in-person voting, and therefore we may not see as many provisional ballots. It's not clear until we receive those. There are some different variables that could impact why someone would vote a provisional ballot. Sometimes it's as simple as they went to the precinct other than the one where they're registered, but they wanted to vote at that precinct, and so they were provided a provisional ballot. It may be that they did not appear in the poll book correctly, and so in order to rectify that situation, they would be provided with a provisional ballot. So there's several situations. Also, for the voting sites that we extended their hours, they also have voted provisional ballots. So we'll just have to see how everything, how the numbers shape out as we hear back from the counties.
Our next question is from John Evans with WECT.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Is there anywhere on your website or anywhere that you would make available a county-by-county breakdown of that 117,000 outstanding absentee by mail ballots? Thanks.
So I will refer that to our PIO. He can provide you with that. But yes, we do provide that breakdown and have been for many days now in a not only a statewide number, but a breakdown by county.
Next question is from Rusty Jacobs with WUNC.
Hi, that was my question. So I'll ask this one. Just what message do you want to give the public as they await results and wait for both the count of any outstanding absentee ballots that are returned and accepted and any provisional ballots?
Thank you, Rusty, for the opportunity to answer that question. You know, what we wanted everyone to understand is that 2020 may have been an unprecedented year. We may have had unprecedented turnout, but the conduct of elections did not change in 2020, except for the added precautions for COVID-19. We will continue the same processes of chain of custody, reconciliation, auditing, all the steps that we have taken as election professionals for decades in order to ensure the security and the integrity of North Carolina elections. And so what we ask at this point in time is to let the process happen just as it has in previous elections. And with that, we will be able to ensure an accurate and fair election for North Carolinians, and they can have confidence in the outcome of the votes that they cast.
Our next question is from Andrew Ballard with Bloomberg Law.
Hi, yes, my question was also answered, so I'll ask this. I know you said traditionally the mail-in rate was about 3 to 5%, and it was obviously much higher this year. Do you see what do you see for the future? Is this going to be the way we may see more participation in that, or how do you feel about that?
Well, one thing I don't have is a crystal ball, because coming into this election year, we never thought we'd be in the middle of a pandemic. We also thought that the pandemic would be an 8-week window, and here we are continuing to wear masks, practicing social distancing, and conducting a successful election with some of the highest rates that we've seen of COVID outbreaks in North Carolina. So I foresee that, as long as we are still in a pandemic situation, we do have elections next year, so perhaps we will continue to see an increased usage of absentee by mail. We also hope that North Carolinians saw what an easy process it is, and that it will be hopefully a voting method that they will consider again. But whatever method a voter chooses, we want them to choose the voting method that they're most comfortable with, whether we are in a pandemic or not.
Next question is from Nick Oxner with WBTV.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. With these county board meetings to go over both the provisional ballots and the absentees, is there any chance of counties moving up these meetings or calling a special emergency meeting on shorter notice? And are you comfortable with no more absentee ballot results or numbers being published until November 12th, or is that something you would encourage the counties to do? Think about holding these public meetings sooner so that we can get additional absentee ballot results.
What I'd like to do, Nick, is to come back to the latter part of your question after our general counsel explains to everyone what our notice requirements are, particular to absentee ballot meetings.
So General Statute 163-234 requires that county boards of elections notice these post-election day absentee meetings at least 2 weeks before Election Day. So that's what the law is. There is no ability to change when those absentee meetings are scheduled for at this point. So we follow the law, the county boards follow these processes, and that's what the law has been. So we're continuing, as the executive director has described, the same processes and the same schedules that the law has prescribed for a long time.
So to the latter part of your question, Nick, it's not a situation where we can encourage them to have emergency meetings or special meetings. If they need to for other purposes, certainly, but we'll adhere to what the law provides us.
Next question is from Travis Fain with WRAL TV.
Nick actually asked my question. I think I'm good, other than, obviously we're all eager to see anything you can on absentee ballot and provisionals.
I can't make the days move faster, Travis.
Fair enough.
Next question is from Danny Hakem with the New York Times.
My questions were asked. Thank you.
We'll go to Derek Dellinger with Fox 46 Charlotte.
Yes, my question specifically has to do along the lines with the outstanding ballots, and actually, that question was already answered. I actually have another question I'm going to ask you. It's a good wrap-up question for me. The question specifically has to do with the lessons learned as a result of all this. This has definitely been a very unique election, I guess, for the State Board of Elections, for all the counties as well. Is there any lesson you've learned from the early voting? Is there anything that you've learned from the unique nature of this that you might be carrying over into the next elections?
I really appreciate that question, because the process of doing lessons learned is something that we have incorporated into how we conduct any election. And once we actually are complete on November the 13th, and then following the state board's meeting on November the 24th, we will go through a lessons learned process where we look at what worked, what didn't work, and what we can improve upon. This has been an outstanding job by our county boards of elections and the state board staff, but we always do look at ourselves and say, how can we improve and what can we do better to ensure the voters of North Carolina that they have a good voting experience when they do come out to exercise their right to vote. So we will be looking at that. Specific to one-stop early voting, this has been a proven voting method in North Carolina. For many of our counties, it has been the most popular form of voting for the vast majority of our counties in our state. So I think what we'll take away from it is, just the subtle changes that we could make. We'll continue to look at best practices if we're still in a pandemic situation, and how we can make this voting place as safe as possible for both our voters and our workers. We will continue to look at, just how to have the best voting environment that we possibly can. I think one takeaway for me is that what we saw because of the pandemic is an increased use in our curbside early voting, or our curbside voting at our early voting sites in particular. And is there a way that we can make that even more voter friendly than what we have in place?
Our next question is from Garrett Bergquist with Spectrum News 1.
Good afternoon, Director. We've got obviously several steps we got to go through here over the next week. What sorts of changes are the boards going to have to make in terms of their procedures for canvassing and all that sort of thing with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic, if anything?
That's a very good question. They actually have been making modifications in order to conduct safe and healthy board meetings throughout this period. I believe most of you know, September 29th was the first absentee board meeting that was held for each county board across the state. And with those meetings, they have either been able to accommodate individuals remotely, and they could continue that practice. In some cases, they have put up the protective barriers with each of the board members, depending on their spacing that's allowable within their offices. Certainly, they have been wearing masks and/or face shields in order to ensure that they themselves are protected, as well as the staff members. So they've been wearing gloves quite often as they handle these documents. So things of that nature will be continued, as well as, depending on the layout or the design of the office, they will have to look at what's safe for the public and whether that has to be limited in terms of the number of individuals who can be in the offices, or if they'll have to attend remotely.
Next question is from Ames Alexander with the Charlotte Observer.
Yes, hi. You all may be aware of the man in Union County who said he voted twice because he saw no indication that his first vote had been recorded. He voted early, or attempted to do so, on October 31st. I'm wondering if you can tell us how many reports or indications of double voting you've received, and I guess the follow-up question to that is what you think may have led to this problem.
So I do not have an exact count. I know that the numbers were very small as I tracked incidents with the other state board team members yesterday. So it is a very small number of individuals that we are researching to determine if they did double vote or if there was any issue in how their ballots were processed. So I don't have that number for you at this time. So that I'll have to leave that question there. I believe you may have had a follow-up if you want to restate that.
Oh, sure. Do you have any indication how this happened in Union County? What this man says is that he saw no indication on the State Board of Elections website that his first vote had been recorded, and then he went to the poll yesterday, and poll workers in Union County looked it up, couldn't see any indication that he voted, so they let him vote again.
I don't want to get into the specifics of an individual voter, so we won't go into too much detail. There are a few instances. Some of this is about the in transit of the ballot arriving to the County Board of Elections, and when it would and the poll books being set up on election day. So we'll be researching that. We have an excellent investigations team who can help with that research, as well as the work that the county boards of elections will do in order to determine if there's an issue here that needs to be resolved.
Next question is from Tina Terry with WSOC TV.
Good afternoon, and thanks for taking our questions. At this point, do you know if any Democratic or Republican Party officials have requested to watch absentee ballot counting? And if so, will that take place? And when could it take place? And has that happened before?
So our absentee board meetings are actually public meetings. So whether they're a representative of the party or members of the public who don't affiliate themselves with a party, those meetings are available for them to come and see the process taking place.
Next question is from Michael Hyland with CBS 17.
Hi, this is Michael Hyland from CBS 17. As far as the remaining absentee ballots coming in, at this point, is there any opportunity for voters to fix any issues that may be discovered with those ballots? Or at this point, if they are rejected, is that the final call for any ballots to come in over the next 8 days?
So if a ballot has to be spoiled or rejected, we cannot reissue a ballot at this time. As I indicated, all ballots have been cast. If there is a cure or a deficiency that can be cured or fixed, the county boards are able to send out those certificates. Correct, General Counsel? Thank you. Until the 12th, that's right. Thank you.
Next question is from Jordan Wilkie with Carolina Public Press.
Hi, election challenges and...
You cut out on me, Jordan.
Sorry?
You cut out. I think you had a glitch in your internet connection, perhaps.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Election challenges, voter challenges, and election protests are filed with the counties. Is the state board going to collect those and share them in a way that they can be easily seen in aggregate?
I'll turn that over to our general counsel who handles the challenges and protest processes.
Hey, Jordan. So voter challenges, just to differentiate a challenge versus a protest, a voter challenges the eligibility of a single voter to either be registered to vote or to cast that ballot. And most challenges will have already been filed at this point. There's a very limited ability to file a voter challenge for an absentee ballot that comes in after Election Day at this time. Those are filed at the county level. The state board is not directly involved in the process of voter challenges, so we would not have information about individual voter challenges. Election protests are also filed at the county level, and those could be filed right around before or after the county canvass. If an election protest is appealed up to the state board, then the State Board of Election would consider that election protest. We do frequently receive copies of elections protests from counties, and so if you wanted to make a request for any that we had received, that's something that could be considered at that time, but we don't have any election protests that have been received at this time.
We have a follow-up from Jordan Wilkie.
I'm wondering if y'all also have a count of some things that could be part of an election protest, such as the number of unauthorized return absentee by mail ballots, or absentee by mail ballots that were cured but were missing some witness information, such as name or address, as was addressed in the recent ruling in Democracy NC v. State Board.
I'm not sure if I completely understand your question. Was it whether somebody could file a challenge of an absentee envelope and then that could be an election protest? Can you restate that?
These are things that may garner additional scrutiny, and that is, given previous statements by people observing the election, unauthorized returns of absentee by mail ballots, people turning in those ballots though they were not authorized to do so, and witness information that is missing on some of the absentee by mail ballots that have been cured. Those are things that have garnered extra attention by people watching the election. And I'm wondering if y'all have a particular count of those potentially questionable by mail ballots, just as they may play a role in any election protest.
So by rule that was adopted by the State Board of Elections several years ago, someone who returns an absentee by mail ballot who is not authorized to do so, that fact alone does not invalidate the ballot. The county board would need to have additional information that it was executed in a way that was not compliant with the statute in order to not approve it. In terms of issues with the execution of the envelope, that's not something that is subject to a voter challenge. Voter challenge challenges the qualifications of a voter to be registered or to vote a particular ballot style or in a particular primary. I think I'll leave it at that, other than to say that an election protest must allege an outcome determinative violation of law or irregularity. And so an election protest that merely alleges that a few ballots have been cast illegally or in a way that does not comply with the statute but is less than the margin of the contest, that would not constitute a valid election protest.
Next question is from Kim King, WLOS TV, Asheville.
Not able to hear you, Kim. Sorry.
I apologize for the problems earlier. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I apologize because we were having some problems with the connection that I didn't quite hear everything. If you would be so kind as to just go over for us one more time the 117 absentee ballots. I understand you're waiting for those to come in. There are 8 days for those to come in. On your website, though, there is a bar chart that shows ballots cast, 74.56%, over 5 million out of 7 million. Could you explain that for me, just to clarify what that means, even though 100% of the precincts have reported?
So I believe when you're seeing 74%, that's the turnout of that's the ballots cast to the number of registered voters in our state. So that's what 74% represents, is how many of our registered voters participated in this election. Obviously, as we count other ballots, potentially that number could go up, as we would then have more voters who are participating in the election. That's a separate statistic or calculation from the 117 ballots that were requested, but we have not had returned to us. We may see a situation where an individual does not return that to us. They may have voted yesterday during the election, and as we work through our voter history, we will be able to reduce that number, because those would be individuals who did go and vote in person. We may be able to reduce that number as well because someone returns that in the mail and was properly postmarked by yesterday, Election Day.
Our next question is from Gloria Rodriguez with ABC 11.
Hi, good afternoon. Is it correct that there were 17,000 absentee ballots that arrived yesterday, and would those be reflected in the 117,000 number?
I don't know that I have that information on hand. I'll refer that to our PIO, Pat Gannon, to clarify.
Our next question is from, we have a follow-up from Gloria Rodriguez.
Yes, and I know you mentioned that there was no new legal, litigation right now, but do you expect any legal challenges moving forward?
General Counsel is indicating that that's not something, again, we don't have a crystal ball. There's always the possibility, but at this time we are not aware of any pending or proposed litigation.
Next question is from Laura Braish with WFAE La Noticia in Charlotte.
Hi there. I just wanted to check in and see when you guys may have kind of an idea or preliminary data on the number, or I guess racial and ethnic breakdown of voters here in North Carolina.
So demographic information is compiled once we have completed voter history. I want to just point out to everyone that when we're in a one-stop early voting situation, we're able to upload data every night, and we're only dealing with hundreds of polling places or voting sites during that one-stop early voting period. We had fewer than 500 sites, 471, I believe is the exact number. That's very manageable. Yesterday, we opened 2,661 polling places, I believe was the exact number. That's how many sites we have to upload data from. So that may be from an electronic poll book, or it may be from a manual process where we have individual paper records for voters. So please give some patience to our election officials. They returned to work this morning no matter what hour they left last night. They reopened at 8 or 8:30 depending on their county office hours. They are returning supplies, they are returning election equipment, and they are beginning their audit process, because at 11 o'clock this morning they were told which 2 precincts they would use to conduct their sample hand-to-eye audit. It was a random selection. For some, that's a one-stop early voting site. One particular county has 16,000 ballots that they will count by hand to confirm the accuracy of our voting equipment. So these are all the processes that are going on, and these are not hundreds of staff members. So please have patience with them, and we will get you that data as quickly as we possibly can. Hopefully it'll be just a matter of days, but we do complete that as part of our 10-day county canvass process.
Next question is from Tanya Simpson with ABC News.
Good afternoon, Director Bell. Thank you so much for taking the question. And this one might be for Council Love. I was just wondering if you could talk about the rules or laws governing any automatic recounts or any recounts that might be requested by a candidate?
I could answer that question, but she's so good at it, I'll let her.
There are two kinds of recounts in North Carolina. There are mandatory recounts and discretionary recounts. A mandatory recount is when a runner-up candidate is within a certain margin of the contest being very close. And mandatory means that if the candidate asks for it, they get it. And they don't have to pay for it in North Carolina. The cost is borne by the Board of Elections. For a statewide contest, the margin to demand a recount is 10,000 votes. And for other contests, it's 1%. There are also discretionary recounts, and that's when the County Board of Elections or even the State Board of Elections could determine that in order to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the vote count, they will perform a discretionary recount.
Our next question is from Pamela Kirkland with CNN.
Hi, thank you guys for doing another call. Really appreciate it. I had a question about something that came up during a federal court hearing earlier today about U.S. Postal Service delays. There was a mention of a backlog of ballots in Greensboro, and apparently an election protection hotline had also received a report of about 4 days of election mail, including ballots backlogged in Guilford County. Is that something the board is investigating, or has the board been in contact with the Guilford County Board of Elections about it?
I have not been briefed on that. Let me check with our general counsel. Yeah, we'll have to get back to you to determine if there's anything affecting our absentee ballots in the mail process.
Next question is from William Duran with the News and Observer.
Hi there. Yeah, sorry if this has been asked already. I don't think it has. But on absentee ballot, mail-in ballots that had to be rejected, for issues with signatures or whatever else, do y'all have a number yet on how many rejections there were? And also, is there still time for voters to fix any of those issues if they get contacted by the state, or is that deadline done and gone?
So I'll let Pat Gannon send you the number of ballots that we found a deficiency issue with. If a ballot was rejected or spoiled, meaning we had to reissue a new ballot, all ballots had to be postmarked or postmarked election day or received by 5 p.m. to the County Board of Elections if it was a ballot that was being cast. If there is a deficiency that can be cured with the certification form or certification document, there is still time to have those issues cured, meaning for example, the witness address was missing. So we can do that through the cure process until November the 12th.
And our final question today is from Lecrae Mitchell with CBS News.
I was asking about Greensboro. So just to be clear, you all don't have information on that backlog at the time, right? Or at this moment?
Was that about the Postal Service? If that's the case, no, I do not have a specific report on that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.